Hello and welcome to Precon Decon, the video series where I deconstruct the pre-constructed decks of Magic the Gathering's history. In this video we're going to carry on looking at the decks from Lorwyn. We're going to move on to Elemental's Path, which is an absolutely bona fide 5-colour deck, like actual proper 5-colour deck, as in there are cards of every colour in the deck. And I think this, I was going to say it's the last 5-colour deck. It isn't. But is one of the last ones, and it has been the first 5-colour deck in a while. Like the first proper one, actually, we've looked at this season, because obviously 5-colour is very difficult to work in a kind of a pre-constructed way. But I think this one does an okay job at it. So let's get into look at it. So we have 31 creatures, 5 artifacts, 3 sorceries, 21 land. 21 land is actually very low, thinking about it, considering 5 colours. And then we got a mana curve off to the side there. So. It's a 5-colour deck, but it is predominantly red, which is weird because elementals, elementals were weird in Lorwyn, right? We're going to go on for a slight tangent and talk about the elementals in Lorwyn. So, elementals basically came in 2 types. You either had the Flamekin, who are like one of the main red tribes in Lorwyn, or you had like the I guess what you call them, like primal elementals, primordial elementals, who are like the weird. Like they're weird, spooky animal mashups, and they look very weird. They kind of actually remind me of Kamigawa spirits, actually, because of how weird their artwork is. So the like primal elementals are in basically every color, and the Flamekin are only in red. So this is kind of like a deck that I guess was trying to combine the two. And yeah, there is obviously overlap because they both count as elementals, and it's a tribal block. So yeah, it's fine. You've got elemental effects. It doesn't really care what color they are. But yeah, so that's the reason why it's 5-color. Anyway, let's start looking at the cards. So one of the rares in the deck, and this is a great rare I think to start with, is Incandescent Soulstoke. So 2 cards and a red for a 2/2. Gives other elemental creatures you control +1/+1. Oh yeah, I was going to say, I didn't say it in the Boggart deck, but we're now officially at the point where tribal effects like this affect only your stuff. It's not. Because, like, if this had been an older card, it might have been all elementals get +1/+1, but now it's only your stuff. So yes, we're finally in it, and it's great. Because, of course, your cards should only benefit your cards. Like, that's the whole point, Anyway. So he has that effect, and 1 card and 1 red. Tap, you can put an elemental creature card from your hand into play. It gains haste until end of turn, and then sacrifice it end of turn. So you basically get to sneak attack an elemental in, which is really good because you've got a bunch of really expensive elementals in the deck who have like enter the battlefield effects. So this is actually a really good way of getting around. A lot of the problems you have with 5-color decks, which is like normally not being able to cast them. You have Incandescent Soulstoke, you use this ability and you just put it straight into play. So yeah, pretty good rare to have. I think it's been downshifted to uncommon, which is insane because this would be such a strong uncommon. I think this is a really perfect rare to have. 2 Flamekin Harbingers. This, in my experience, so there's a whole cycle of these Harbingers. There's one for every main tribe in Lorwyn. This, in my opinion, is the best one, just because it's only a single. It's a 1-drop. It's a 1-mana tutor. It's really, really good. So when it comes to play, search your library for an elemental card, reveal it, then shuffle your library, put that card on top of it. So it can tutor for basically any card in the deck for 1 mana is really, really good. So yeah, really like Flamekin Harbinger. 2 of those. 3 Smoke Braiders, so 1 card and a red for a 1/1. Taps to give you 2 mana of any combination of colours. Spend this mana only to play elemental spells or the activated abilities of elementals. So this is another way. Kind of weird to see like red getting like this kind of ability. I like it though. I like red mana dorks, but like it makes sense to have like these restrictions where like you can expend the mana in certain ways. I really like that actually. Anything to kind of get this to have non-green mana dorks, basically, I'm on board with it. So yeah, this is really good, and like again, it's a really good way of kind of getting around a lot of the hurdles of being like a 5-color deck. Because like even if this was in just a mono red deck, that's still a really good ability. It's still 2 mana to cast elemental spells. So yeah, I really like Smoke Braider, really good, and like 3 of them is obviously really helpful in this deck. So then a bunch of these red flamekin. So a minor theme that the red flamekin have is it's really cool actually. It's this mechanical focus on activated abilities. And like activating them a certain number of times. So Ceaseless Sear Blades, 3 colors and a red for a 2/4. Whenever you activate the ability of an elemental, it gets +1/+0 to the end of turn, which is fun and like kind of unique. Hadn't really seen anything like that rules text before. So it means when you have Flamekin Brawler, who's 1 red mana for a 0/2 and has a fire breathing ability, which is like really good honestly for like a 1-drop, to have a fire breathing ability. It's like not one of these cards where like, oh, he's got a fire breathing ability, make it cost an extra 2. And just like, no, I have to pay mana to use its ability. Why bake in the extra cost? But so every time you use that ability, the Ceaseless Sear Blades get +1/+0. So yeah, pretty nice interactions you got going on here. And then we have 2 Inner Flame Igniters, so 2 cards in a red for a 2/2. 2 in a red, creatures you control get +1/+0 to them, so which is like a fine ability to buff up the board. But if this is the 3rd time this ability is resolved this turn, creatures you control also get first strike until end of turn. So if you do this 3 times, your whole board's got +3/+0 and first strike, which is is pretty it's pretty good. Obviously requires a lot of mana. However, you've got the Smoke Braiders, but also we have 3 Soulbright Flamekins. So Soulbright Flamekin is 2 mana for a 2/1. 2 colorless, target creature gets trample until end of turn. If this is the 3rd time this ability is resolved this turn, you add 8 red mana to your mana pool, which is so. I mean, technically, it's it's a way of producing mana. It turns 6 into 8, which is it's pretty strong. And then obviously you got Inner Flame Igniter, you got the Flamekin Brawler. Yeah, it's really good. And the fact that ability requires colorless mana is great because I say you're in 5 colors, so you might have a bit of a ropey mana base, and then it turns it all into red mana, which is then good for your Flamekin Brawler and the Inner Flame Igniter. So yeah, really interesting and really clever how all these flamekin like have this connection in their activated abilities. I think it's a really interesting kind of mechanic to have as a theme. And then, I mean, these are kind of more basic Flamekin. They don't have that kind of focus, but they're still, I think they're okay. Flamekin Bladewell is 1 red mana for a 2/1. As an additional cost to cast it, you have to reveal an elemental card from your hand or pay 3. So obviously you don't want to pay 4 mana for a 2/1 with no abilities. So, I mean, I suppose you could play this and then reveal an elemental that you're going to play in the same turn or next turn, and you're not really giving away that much information, but it's okay, I suppose. A single Inner Flame Acolyte, so 1 colours and 2 red for a 2/2. When it comes into play, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains haste until end turn, which is an okay buff. And it has Evoke. So Evoke is this other fun mechanic in Lorwyn. So Evoke is creature with Evoke, and it's pretty much all elementals. I don't think there's a non-elemental card with that has Evoke. So you can pay the Evoke cost when it's in your hand, which means it comes into play and then it's immediately sacrificed, but obviously it's then come into play long enough to have its effect. So for 1 red mana, this is essentially sorcery speed pump spell. Which is all right, and a lot of the like those primordial elementals have like evoke costs as well, so you can essentially treat them as spells, which I think is actually pretty fun design. And then 2 changeling berserkers, 3 cards in a red for a 5/3. It is a changeling, so it is every creature type at all times, so it counts as an elemental for all those effects. Has haste and it has champion a creature. So champion is a really fun ability, in my opinion. It basically think of it as Pokemon evolution. So champion is you play it as additional cost to play it. You have to exile a creature you control, and then you've got the creature, you've got the berserker, and then when the berserker dies, the creature you exiled comes back. Like imagine the creature exiling is upgrading into the berserker. So yeah, this is pretty good. It's a good way of triggering comes into play effects again, because you exile the creature, this dies, and then the exiled creature comes back again and it gets its effect again. So yeah, pretty good. And also just being a 5/3 with haste for 4 is pretty good. So now we go on to like these kind of like I said, these like primal elementals, who have all the kind of weird animal mashed art. They really are. I say they remind me of Kamigawa Spirits because their art is so fun and like freaky to look at. So we have a single Dawn Fluke, 3 colours and a white for a 0/3 of flash, which is, I mean, that's not great. That's not a great start. When it comes to play, prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to target creature or play this turn. It has Evoke for a single white mana. This is one that you'd probably just evoke just to prevent 3 damage. It's not worth 4 mana for this to have a 0/3 and this effect. Pretty weak card. This is one you'd probably try and cut as soon as possible, I think. A single Wispmare. This is, I think Wispmare is okay. So 2 colours and a white for a 1/3 flyer. When it comes into play, destroy an enchantment, and it has Evoke for a single white. So it's either like sorcery speed, demystify, or it's like, you know, a decently okay blocker with flying and has the effect as well. So I think Wispmare is okay. Kind of wish there'd been 2 of these instead of just 1 Dawn Fluke and 1 Wispmare. 2 Ether Snipes, so 5 and a blue for a 4/4. When it comes to play, bounce a non-land permanent, and it has Evoke for 1 colours and 2 blue. Yeah, I think it's like pretty good card. Obviously, early game you can do it at sorcery speed and get a bounce, which is not ideal. Or 6 mana, 6 mana for a 4/4 with this ability is actually, I think, pretty good. So yeah, I think Ether Snipe is a fairly solid card. Mulldrifter, everyone loves Mulldrifter, right? So 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer. When it comes to play, draw 2 cards, and you can evoke it for 2 colours and a blue. So yeah, it's we just like Mulldrifter. It's just, you know, really good effect. Evoking it feels fine. Drawing 2 for 3 is fine at sorcery speed, and 5 mana for a 2/2 flyer that draws you 2 when it comes in is perfectly fine as well. So yeah, really like Mulldrifter. Again, kind of wish there'd been maybe more than one in this deck, but I kind of get they want to show a variety of these. So 2 Morn Whelks, so 6 and a black for a 3/3. When it comes to play, target player discards 2 cards, and you can evoke it for 4. This, I think, is a little too expensive for what it actually does. I don't know. Maybe would have preferred if it was just like discard 1 card, and it had a much lower evoke cost, and maybe it just had like higher stats, like it was like a 4/4, even like a 5/4 or something, and you did 1 discard. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it's a giant crab snail. What's not to love? Shriekmaw. Shriekmaw is kind of popular. One of the more popular evoke cards, I think. So 4 and a black for a 3/2 with fear. When it comes to play, it does terror, so it destroys a non-artifact, non-black creature, and you can evoke it for 2. Yeah, pretty good. I think you wouldn't feel too bad about casting this at casting it and keeping it at 5 mana, because, you know, it's killing a creature and then it's sticking around as a 3/2 with evasion, so pretty strong, I think. A single Fault Grinder, so 6 and a red for a 4/4 with trample. When it comes into play, you destroy a land. You can evoke it for 5. Evoking this for 5 is like really expensive. That's like 2 more than a Stone Rain. So I think this is one where you'd probably just, unless you were really desperate, you would just hold out and cast this one normally. Thing is, like, evoke, I think only really works if it's if like there's a really big difference between the casting cost and the evoke cost. Yeah, like Shriekmaw, that's like a 3-turn difference. Like an early game, that really matters. Whereas Fault Grinder, you know, that's I don't think that's really much of a choice. You might as well just hang on and get the 4/4 trample. You know, it's not like destroying a single land is not worth 5 mana, in my opinion. And then a single Briarhorn, 4 mana for a 3/3 with flash. When it comes to play, target creature gets +3/+3 turn. It has Vote for 1 colour, 1 green. So you could cast this. I think at 4 mana, this is a fine effect to have. It come down, give itself +3/+3, and become a 6/6 instant speed, which is not terrible. Or evoke it as and add its basically more expensive giant growth. So I think Briarhorn is fine. Yeah, fine card to have. So the other rare in the deck is Horde of Notions. So 1 white, 1 blue, 1 black, 1 red, 1 green for a 5/5 for Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. And you spend Wooburg, you can play a elemental card from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. So that's a pretty strong effect. Obviously, you've got to get all 5 colours of mana out to do it. But yeah, it's pretty. I think it's a pretty good effect. Yeah, I think it's a pretty fun, rare creature to have in the deck. Have an actual genuine 5-colour rare creature. And then a single Changeling Titan, 4 cards and a green for a 7/7 with Changeling and champion a creature. Yep, it's just a big fatty. It's fine. And then moving on to non-creature spells. So we have 3 Consuming Bonfires. So 3 colors and 2 red for a elemental sorcery. Choose one. It does 4 damage to a non-elemental creature or 7 damage to a tree folk. So, like, really screw over tree folk in particular, I suppose. This is very expensive, and I just think it's pretty bad. The fact that it can't hit players, I think, is pretty bad. I think 5 mana for only 4 damage at sorcery speed is pretty bad. Yeah, it's just not a great card in my opinion. There's a lot better this could have been. And then we have a bunch of mana fixing. So 2 Springleaf Drums, which lets you tap an untapped creature to give you 1 mana of any colour. Yep. Wanderer's Twig lets you find basic land. Shimmering Grotto filters your mana, so you pay 1 and tap and you get 1 mana of any colour back. And Vivid Crag. So the Vivid lands I think are really fun. So they come in with 2 charge counters on them, and you can tap to get 1 mana of like kind of the colour it is, it sort of represents. That's a really bad way of putting it. So the crag is obviously a mountain, so it gives you red. Or you can tap, remove a charge count to get 1 mana of any colour. So I think this is pretty good for fixing. So that's all fine. So yeah, definitely had some colour fixing options there. So what could have been? So I said there's a few duff cards in here. The Dawn Fluke and the Consuming Bonfire is the one that jump out the most. In regards to rares, I think the rares actually are pretty fine. Horde of Notions, maybe not necessary, just because it would have been a little tricky to get out. But I think it's still a fine rare to have. But what could have been, if they hadn't chosen Horde of Notions, you could have Nova Chaser, who's 4 mana for a 10/2 with Trample, and you have to champion Elemental. Just having the champion effect means you get these effects out of your Elementals again, and just being a 10/2 with Trample is pretty fun. Incendiary Command is just a big red spell, and it's like this is where the commands first show up in Lorwyn. These big flashy spells that have like you choose 2 out of like 4 options. They're like mega charms, so that's pretty fun. Lash Out, I think, definitely should have been out instead of the Consuming Bonfire. So this is 1 colour and a red, does 3 damage to a creature, and then you clash with an opponent. If you win the clash, you also do 3 damage to the controller, which is potentially like a lot of damage for just 2 mana. So, and at instant speed, I think, which is more important. So yeah, I think this definitely would have been better than the Bonfire. And another rare, Hoofprints of the Stag. This is kind of like a maybe. 1 colour and a white. It's an elemental enchant. When you draw a card, you put a Hoofprint counter on Hoofprints and the Stag, and you pay 2 and a white, remove 4 Hoofprint counters, and you make a 4/4 white elemental with flying. I don't know, could have been okay, I suppose, but I think the rares in here are perfectly fine as they are. So, in summary, I think this is a really interesting take on a 5-color deck, having it being predominantly red and it being elementals is like a fun tribe to be in 5 colors. And I think it's pretty well put together. There's not many cards in here I think don't really match. I guess maybe if I was going to say one thing, I would have maybe made this blue, red, green instead, because like I don't think the white and the black are adding too much to it. And blue, red, green are kind of traditionally seen as like the elemental colors, so I would have maybe done that instead rather than have 5-color. But I think it works perfectly fine, I think, as it is. And yes, I think I had all the Lorwyn decks, and this one again sort of did all right out of the box. But I think I quickly dismantled it. I think I went with red-blue elementals in the end because I really liked Ether, Snipe, and Muldrifter. But that's just my thoughts on the deck after reviewing it. What are your thoughts after seeing the deck list? If you had this deck, if you've got any thoughts or opinions or stories about it, please put a comment below. I always like reading people's comments. I'll be back next time to look at another Lorwyn pre-constructed deck. But until then, thank you for watching and listening. Have a great day.